Holy cow, guys. Minnesota is on fire. Now, what started as a tense back and forth between Congresswoman Ilhan Omar and DHS Chief Tom Homan has detonated into something that nobody was prepared for. A full-blown ICE crackdown, crowds flooding the streets, agents swarmed and threatened, and pepper spray cutting through the air as Minneapolis spiraled into chaos. Now, here's the part that the media is already trying to downplay. This didn't come out of nowhere. Tom Homan, he warned that this was coming. He said it on air. He said it behind the scenes. He told anyone who would listen that the moment President Trump walked back in the White House, that the days of looking the other way were over. Fraud files would be reopened, visa pipelines would be investigated, and the people who thought that they were protected, they weren't anymore. But nobody expected Ilhan Omar to erupt the way that she did. Nobody expected supporters to clash with the ICE in the streets. Nobody expected a viral video of a Minnesota student threatening to pop the agents to explode across the internet. And nobody expected DHS to respond by launching the most aggressive facial recognition rollout in years. Immediately after Omar's confrontation with Homar went viral. Guys, tonight, we're going to break down exactly how a TV fight turned into a street-level meltdown and why DHS officials are saying that this is only the beginning. Hit the like button and subscribe. Now, before we dive into everything that unfolded next, let me go ahead and say something that connects directly to what we're watching happen in our country right now. All 50 states, we're seeing this. Now, you spent a lifetime building something, a home, a family, a future, a sense of stability. But moments like this, moments when systems shake, when institutions clash, when the ground feels like it's shifting underneath you, they force you to ask a question that most people avoid. What actually protects what you've built? And this is why I partner with Noble Gold Investments. They help people secure their savings with physical gold and silver, real assets, not promises. Assets that don't panic when Washington panics, assets that don't care who wins an election or whether Wall Street melts down. Now, most people don't need a sales pitch. They just need to ask the right questions. Do you trust inflation to stop eating your savings? Do you trust the Fed to get it right this time? You already know the answer. And this is why countless Americans are dialing the phone number at the bottom of your screen right there. Phone number is 877-646-5347, or they're visiting RonYatesGold.com to get their free wealth protection kit. I left a link for you down below because protecting what you've built isn't optional. This is your responsibility. What nobody expected was how fast this thing was going to blow up, because it didn't start in the streets. It started on live television. Ilhan Omar and Tom Homan sitting across from each other, smiles gone, gloves off. Omar erupts first, accusing Tom Homan of waging a political crusade against immigrant communities in Minnesota. So Ilhan Omar says he's targeting Somalis, weaponizing DHS, and hiding behind Trump's return to power. And Homan, he doesn't flinch. He looks straight into the camera and says, the fraud files are being reopened, all of them. The studio goes dead silent. Ilhan Omar fires back, calling it harassment. Tom Homan counters with, if the law was broken, we're not ignoring it anymore. That was the spark. That moment right there, the eruption, the accusation, the pushback, this was what sent Minnesota into a pressure cooker waiting to explode. Now, what makes this moment even more explosive is that Homan predicted this. Months before the chaos even hit Minneapolis, he warned publicly that years of ignored fraud cases, visa abuse, and political shielding had created a backlog that would rupture the second enforcement returned. Now, under the Biden administration, he argued investigations were slowed down, files went untouched, and DHS morale completely collapsed. But once Trump was sworn back in, Homan said that the lid was going to come off. He told interviewers, we're sitting on a mountain of cases everyone pretended didn't exist. Nobody listened. Not the media, not MSNBC, CNN, ABC News, New York Times, you name it, and definitely not Ilhan Omar. They brushed it off as political theater. But Tom Homan meant every word. And when Minnesota erupted, when pepper spray hit the air and crowds surged around ICE agents, suddenly his warning didn't sound like rhetoric. It sounded like prophecy. And the ICE sweep in Minnesota, this was supposed to be routine. At least on paper it was. So a targeted operation was planned to be focused on visa overstays, suspected fraud cases, and individuals flagged during prior DHS investigations. President Trump had authorized a nationwide enforcement surge. Minnesota was simply one of the first stops. But what Homan didn't expect, what nobody expected, was how fast the situation would spiral once agents hit the ground in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Word spread almost almost instantly across social media. Crowds formed before agents even finished the first address. People poured into the streets, shouting, filming, blocking vehicles, demanding ICE leave the neighborhood. Suddenly, a quiet enforcement action turned into a standoff that felt like it could erupt at any second. What was meant to be methodical and controlled, it became unpredictable, volatile, and dangerously close to losing control. And before we get into what happened next, because trust me, the moment that comes after this completely changed everything. I need to say something real quick that too many people learned the hard way. So a viewer messaged me last week, the same month his car broke down, he got hit with a $900 medical bill. His Medicare plan covered the visit, but not the procedure. Now, he told me it broke me emotionally more than financially. And that right there, guys, that is the cost of not knowing what's hiding inside your Medicare coverage. One surprise, one denial, one tiny detail nobody warned you about. It adds stress on top of stress. And this is why I partner with Chapter. They make sure that you never get blindsided like that. Now, most people are already dialing the phone number at the bottom of your screen right there, or they're visiting askchapter.org/Ron. And speaking of this, let me read something from one of you guys. So Leanne Henry, she wrote, "I really like listening to you, Ron. You help me understand the news, and I like your voice too. I used Chapter, and it was a game changer. Thank you. God bless you always." Well, thank you so much, Leanne. Messages like yours really mean more than you know. And I really appreciate everyone who shares their experiences. It really does help the whole community here. So then came the moment that pushed Minnesota into full-blown chaos. ICE and DHS personnel were surrounding a residence when a crowd surged forward. Not dozens, but hundreds. So the AP report described the scene as tense and rapidly escalating, with agents completely encircled and shouting to maintain distance. People refused, cameras out, voices rising, a wall of bodies pressing closer. So when one section of the crowd lunged toward the agents, that's when pepper spray was deployed. The air turned white. People scattered, screaming, coughing, tripping over one another. It wasn't a skirmish. This was a meltdown on a scale no one had prepared for. Within minutes, that footage went viral. Chaos in Minnesota headlines screamed. This was no longer just an immigration operation. This was a turning point, a symbol, and a sign that the storm had already just begun. So just as the pepper spray footage was exploding online, another clip detonated across social media. And this one sent shockwaves straight into Washington. A Somali student in Minnesota, furious over the ICE operations, recorded himself shouting into the camera that he would pop the agents if they came near him or his neighborhood. It was raw, it was emotional, and it was dripping with rage. And within minutes, it went viral. The New York Post picked it up, conservative influencers amplified it, members of Congress reacted, and all of a sudden what had been a local enforcement story turned into a national flashpoint about threats to federal officers. DHS confirmed that they were reviewing the video. Trump supporters called it proof of Homan's warning. Omar supporters said that this reflected fear, not violence. Wow. Do you agree or disagree with Ilhan Omar supporters on that one? But regardless of where your stand is, the damage was done. The clip became gasoline poured onto an already burning fire. And so when that threat video went national, Ilhan Omar moved fast and not subtly. Suddenly, she appeared everywhere. CNN, CBS, MSNBC, radio shows, print interviews. Her message, she condemned violence, condemned excessive ICE tactics, condemned Homan, condemned Trump. It was a full 360-degree PR sprint. But the panic was showing. Reporters kept asking whether her earlier clash with Homan helped inflame tensions. She dodged. They asked whether she supported those resisting ICE in the streets. She pivoted. They asked about fraud investigations reopening. She bristled. You could feel it. The pressure, the urgency, the fear that the narrative was slipping. Omar needed to distance herself from the threats and the chaos while still appeasing the same activists who flooded Minneapolis that night. And yet, every interview only made the story bigger. Her reaction wasn't calming the situation. It was amplifying it. And so just when Minnesota thought that the chaos had peaked, DHS dropped a bombshell, a rapid expansion of facial recognition technology at airports, at checkpoints, and field operations nationwide, including Minnesota. This is what stunned everyone. Officials confirmed the timing wasn't coincidental. Hours after the Omar Homan blowup went viral, DHS greenlit the acceleration of the program. Critics screamed that it was targeted. They claimed that it was meant to intimidate Somali communities. Omar allies called it Orwellian, but Homan and DHS leadership said something very different. This is long overdue. Fraud thrives in the shadows. Technology removes the shadows. The order was simple: verify identities, track overstays, close loopholes, and end the era of paper-only enforcement. So in the eyes of supporters, this was modernization. In the eyes of Omar's base, it looked like escalation, but nobody could deny this. It signaled the fight had entered a new phase. And so behind the scenes, the message from President Trump was blunt, unmistakable, and delivered straight to Tom Homan. Run every file, no exceptions. And according to DHS insiders, that wasn't rhetoric. It It was marching orders. Fraud cases that sat dormant for years reopened. Visa overstays previously deprioritized moved to the front. Individuals flagged during the Biden era but never investigated pulled immediately. This was the sharpest shift in immigration enforcement America had seen in a decade. Holman told staff that Trump wanted every case reviewed, every lead chased, every legal avenue explored, even cases previously written off due to statute of limitation debates. To Ilhan Omar's political camp, this looked like a personal offensive. To conservatives, it looked like the enforcement finally returning after 4 years of paralysis. Either way, no matter how you look at it, Minnesota was the first test site and it was already boiling over. Now, to understand why Minnesota is shaking right now, you have to understand the history behind the Ilhan Omar controversy. This is a story that never fully died, no matter how many times it got fact-checked or fact-checkers tried to bury it. For years, allegations swirled around immigration irregularities tied to her early entry into the United States. Now, some people said it was nonsense. Others said that there were unanswered questions. DHS investigators, according to multiple sources, quietly reviewed the file and found indicators of immigration fraud, but claimed the statute of limitations had run out. Now, under the Biden administration, that was the end of it. Case closed. No movement, no appetite to revisit anything politically explosive. But Trump's return changed everything. Holman openly stated that fraud is fraud and old files are being pulled again. So whether Ilhan Omar is implicated or completely cleared, the reopening alone ignited years of frustration in Minnesota, and it poured gasoline on an already burning city. And so as enforcement intensified, the emotional temperature in Minneapolis skyrocketed. I mean, in Somali neighborhoods, fear spread faster than the facts. Some residents believed ICE was kicking indoors. Others insisted agents were sweeping entire apartment complexes. None of that was even confirmed, but it didn't matter. Social media lit up with rumors, incorrect addresses, unverified warnings, and clips taken out of context. Protesters poured into the streets. Some marched peacefully. Others confronted law enforcement directly. Activists accused DHS of racial targeting. Families hid inside of their homes. Entire businesses closed early. Taxi radios buzzed with warnings to avoid certain blocks. And every new headline, pepper spray, viral threats, shouting matches, standoffs, made tensions rise even higher. The city pretty much felt like it was holding its breath, waiting for something else to snap. And tragically, that night was far from over. So the political explosion that followed was immediate. Minnesota Democrats blasted the crackdown as reckless, dangerous, and designed to terrorize immigrant communities. Ilhan Omar blamed Holman directly, accusing him of creating a climate of fear and provoking unnecessary violence. Minnesota's governor demanded an immediate review of ICE tactics. Progressive lawmakers held press conferences calling the pepper spray incident a national disgrace. But Republicans fired back even harder. They argued the chaos proved exactly what Holman had been saying for years, that the system was broken, that fraud was ignored, and that enforcing existing law shouldn't trigger riots. Conservative media replayed Ilhan Omar's eruption and the viral "pop the agents" threat side by side, framing this as evidence of how out of control things had become. Now, in Washington, the divide was no longer theoretical. This was open war, political, ideological, and now physical in the streets kind of war. And just when Minnesota officials hoped that things might calm down, Tom Holman crushed that illusion on national television. He looked directly into the camera and said the words that sent a chill across the entire country. This is just the beginning. Files are being reopened nationwide. Visa overstays are being tracked with new biometric systems. Cases long dormant are being revived. Deportations, real deportations, are coming. Minnesota, he said, was the flashpoint, not the last. The chaos, the clashes, the pepper spray, he framed them not as failures, but as proof the enforcement was finally happening after years of political paralysis. Supporters cheered, critics panicked, communities braced themselves, and as the dust settled over Minneapolis, one thing became undeniable. The Omar-Holman confrontation wasn't a moment. This was a warning shot, a sign of a new era, one that's already reshaping America in real time. Hit the like button, subscribe. We'll see you on the next video.